seems like she's just on all the time.
She loves this.
Well, she's here a lot. She's clearly a very social person, right? And knows
she loves the station.
A million people, yeah.
We love her because
so she can book it and use that time.
Yeah, so I have about a 15-second delay.
Okay, I don't see me on here.
You should be there
on my Facebook page.
We can start when I'm ready because it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, there I am. Very nice. Thank you.
So
Perfect.
So let me know when you're ready and we'll start.
Oh, it's time.
It is.
Got here early, messed around, and now it's time. Okay, we're good to go.
You know what to do, John. Hold on, don't do nothing yet till I tell you.
Yeah.
There you go. Recording. They can pick the music.
That's me.
Wrong one. I don't even know how that got on there. This one.
What was that?
I don't
That
know.
was my theme music.
There it comes.
There we go.
Don't ask me how that got on there.
I don't know. I think it's right below his. That's why.
I'll take care of that. I'll take it off. Put it on about 30 seconds.
It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the 20th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. My name is Greg Rapport. I am the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Our engineer tonight is John. Hi, John.
How you doing, man?
And it's his first time doing the show, so we're going to have to be patient with him as he gets the music cues correct.
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, to our new time slot. Yay! 8 to 9 p.m. every Thursday night. I am so psyched. And I'm hoping that as we develop this time slot, it will give more young people a chance to call in because it's a school night and call in and express their feelings about the child welfare system. That's what we talk about, the child welfare system, both positive and negative. I'm really not here to bash the system because the fact of the matter is the child welfare system has come a pretty long way since the days when there were virtually no cohesive services for youth. But let's not pretend it's perfect either. Remember No Child Left Behind? Well, turns out that there are actually hundreds and thousands of children left behind, and we need to make a plan for how we're going to change all that. So with that in mind, please tell your friends to tune into this program every week so we can spread the word. This whole concept of internet radio and being able to watch the show through Facebook can have an incredibly intense impact on our culture nationwide. Using the internet as the medium, we can reach people all across the country and develop mentoring services for youth everywhere. We don't just have to do that here in Mercer County. We can do it everywhere across the entire country. So consider all of yourselves deputies in the Child Welfare Army. And just so you know what the odds are, at last count, there are 418,000 youth in the foster care system. 20,000 to 50,000 age out every year. Add to that about another 3 million youth who are homeless. Add to that millions more who live in abject poverty. And you could see the kind of numbers that we're up against, the kind of problem that we're dealing with. And it's time that we take that problem from a local level and start to look at it from a national point of view. So the first order of business, your first job as deputies in the Child Welfare Army is to take a second right now and share this broadcast with your friends on Facebook. Tell them to share it with their friends and on and on and on down the line. We need to recruit the first 100 volunteers nationally to launch pockets of Age Out Angels across the country. To date, we've developed a very successful program locally. In 2018, we need to take that program and plant seeds in every community across the country. So please do it right now. Share this with your friends. Let's get the ball rolling. While you're doing that, I'd like to remind everyone that our theme music comes to us courtesy of Kurt Seldom-Ridge, operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. If you have recording or rehearsal needs, you can get in touch with Kurt by emailing to thecave1876@gmail.com. Call in. Tell me your thoughts tonight about any of the subjects we discuss. The phone number here is 609-807-2492. Again, that's 609-807-2492. You can also tap me on Facebook. You can go into my Facebook page and you can write questions or comments in the comments field on my Facebook. So we're looking forward to getting some interaction with you, our listeners, tonight. And so next, I want to tell you about a story that we're going to be following in 2018. And it's called the Trenton Prevention and Policy Board. This is very interesting. The Obama administration provided funds for urban areas to develop an action plan to reduce youth violence. And cities like Cleveland, Boston, and Camden in New Jersey are already implementing their plans, and they're having success. Remember, the issues that lead to youth violence are complex, and no group can address all the underlying circumstances and have an action plan to save the world in one fell swoop. That's asking too much. But what local child welfare organizations can do and are doing in places like Cleveland and Boston and Camden is band together and begin to make a dent in the problem. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So this program has made its way to Trenton, New Jersey. And the initiative is being developed by the Trenton Prevention and Policy Board, of which I'm proud to say I am a member. Now, one of the issues that came out in yesterday's meeting, and I'll wager this is absolutely universal, this is happening everywhere you are, you're having the same problem. And that problem is that there are already a zillion nonprofits in every locale. There are nonprofits everywhere. They spring up all across the country in all little pockets. And guess what? They all do good work. It's wonderful to have all these organizations. But the problem is they have very little interaction with other nonprofits in their area. It's a fragmented system with minimum communication, either between agencies or with the general public. Now, somebody threw out the number yesterday that there are over 2,000 nonprofits in the greater Trenton area. And it's very safe to say that those of us who engage in child welfare don't know who they all are. We don't know what their focuses are, what their hours of operations are, or even where they are located. So what's the next logical step, right? We live in a technological age, and doesn't it make perfect sense to start by collecting information about all the organizations that could be considered assets? So map the assets, basically, and create a searchable database that both organizations and residents and youth and caregivers and everyone could use to access services for youth. Makes perfect sense, right? What we're talking about is creating a repository of information that would be easy enough for anyone to access. They could access it through their smartphones. We could make an app and it would be great. Okay, so we're having this conversation. They're already doing that in Newark, New Jersey. They already have the database. It's very successful. And the best part is they're actually willing to share their technology with us. So all we have to do is like populate the database. We won't have to develop the technology from scratch the way they had to and reinvent the wheel. All we would do is take, their skeleton and populate it with our information. Okay, so here's the kicker. About 20 of us are sitting in a room and discussing how we might actually implement the database concept, when a woman from the county stood up and passed around a postcard with information about a website called mercerconnects.com. You can go to it, anyone can. It's Mercer, M-E-R-C-E-R, Connects, C-O-N-N-E-C-T-S.com, mercerconnects.com. And it turns out This is a website that already has 1,522 searchable organizations that provide services to youth and adults. It's sponsored by the county, and no one knew about it. Every single person at that table was looking at this postcard with mercerconnects.com going, oh, this is interesting. None of us, not a single one of us knew that it exists. It is the best kept secret in town. Okay, and this is the county. Now, it's not exactly perfect in addressing the issue of preventing youth violence, because the organizations it offers are geared more towards core needs of older youth and adults, like housing, diapers, employment, education, those core needs, which I think if you were doing a database, you might automatically do those first. It would make perfect sense. And to stem the tide of youth violence, and we're talking about teen years, mostly here, we're looking for more after-school programs, activities that engage and inspire youth, that sort of thing. Like, for example, it would be so wonderful to get youth in the inner city into, various clubs and organizations that teach and allow them to practice leadership. Leadership is not something that's taught in schools, and it's something that is certainly missing in the inner city. So, that sort of organization would be good to have. Now, remember I said that there were 1,522 organizations, but I said that there are over 2,000 organizations in the Mercer County area. Those other 500 are the ones who do provide various activities and after-school things. But the point is that the infrastructure already exists and no one knew, all right? That's not where the story ends, though. It actually gets stranger or better, let's just say better. Because next, as this postcard is going around with mercerconnects.com on it, a gentleman stands up and says, oh, we're already doing that. And he tells everyone about a website called collaborationtrenton.com. And you can go there too. It's called collaborationtrenton, all one word, .com. Lo and behold, this is a website that is absolutely geared toward youth and their caregivers. For example, I clicked on and found 28 after-school programs. And the interesting thing is that the site is constructed with interactivity. That's pretty much the way Wikipedia works. For example, if you're an organization, you go in there and you list your organization. You say what you want to say about it. You say the hours of operation. You say what you do. And then if something should change about your organization, you would go in there and make that change. So it works that same way. It's interactive that Wikipedia does, where people can just go in, qualified people, and make changes to the site. And what that does is it pretty much eliminates the need for someone, which is usually a paid person, to sit there and constantly monitor and update the content. Each organization is responsible for updating their own content. It's simple and ingenious at the same time. And it's the second best kept secret in Mercer County, because there aren't 500 listings on it yet. There need to be, but there aren't. So there we were, a room full of people who all work in the industry. And both of these websites were news to all of us. And like I said, I'll wager it's absolutely no different where you live. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this program from. And hi, Frank. Frank just tuned in. Wherever you're listening to this program from, you're having actually the same situation. There are people where you live who are recognizing the need for improvements in the child welfare system. They have the tech ability to make things happen. So they create organizations and they create websites. And what they don't have are the marketing skills and the money it takes to get the word out. So these wonderful assets exist in a vacuum where they help the minimum number of youth and adults instead of the maximum number. John, let's take a short break. Let me give everyone out there a chance to share this broadcast with your friends on Facebook if you haven't already. We'll be back in 40 seconds with updates on some of the youth you've heard interviewed on this program last year and information about where they're headed this year. Back in 40. And we're back. So let's, we're hoping that Shasha is going to call in. And while we're waiting for her to call in, we can talk about some of the other youth that we've worked with in 2017. You know, as Age Out Angels begins the mentoring process and works with young people, and we work with them at all ages. We started at age 13 and 14, and some of the older youth we work with are, you know, age 23. And what we're finding, and what we expected to find, is that the needs of each of these young people is different. Every single person is an individual, and as such, their needs and their situation in life is different than the person who comes before and after them. So in 2017, I introduced you to a young transgender male from Florida named Brian. And Brian, we learned actually about Brian when he was homeless.
You guys got the phone call
in
coming
Albany,
in.
New York. And so I'm going to come back to Brian in a few minutes and take our phone call. Shasha, is that you?
You're on the air. You there?
Yeah,
There she is.
Hi, you're not feeling good tonight, are you?
yeah, no, I'm trying to get over a cold.
I'm so glad you called in. It's good to hear your voice either way, you know. Just want you to know that. Listen,
Anything. I like being on the air with you guys.
I appreciate it. Now, Shasha, for the people who didn't know, our job in the last few weeks was to make sure you had food, right?
Yeah, for winter break.
For winter break. You're on winter break at college, and you are in that group of people who, when the school provides for you, it's wonderful and life is good. And
yeah.
And when the school doesn't provide for you, you are essentially homeless and foodless. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much the situation.
yeah, so this was one of those instances where the school provided shelter for you during winter break, but that not only did they not provide you with food, you had like really no access to food. Like you had.
Yeah, no, not really. They closed everything down for winter break, sadly.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short is we were lucky enough to be able to get you the money so that you could then enlist the help of a friend who would take you shopping?
Yeah, my friend would take me shopping every time anytime she had the chance, because she was here taking winter classes. She'd take me shopping,
So
get
she
food,
would-
groceries and stuff.
That's excellent. Okay. And that's worked out, and then the semester starts again next week, and you're back to normal life, right?
Yep, I'm back to, school starts next Tuesday, and
Excellent.
everything will be reopened and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So that's good. Now, you have your courses lined up for the next semester?
Yeah, I'm actually about to finish most of my classes for my major psychology, so I'm almost pretty done with school. Next year, I'll just be taking free electives to get those credits in to graduate.
Just to get the credits to graduate? So what are your courses next semester? Do you remember them off the top of your head?
I'm taking school psychology, experimental psychology, physiological psychology, beginner Latin class, and introduction to fiction writing.
That is heavy psychology. Whoa.
Yeah, you gotta take it's the part of your major. So I'm finishing up my advanced elective, which is only one class, which is experimental psych, and I'm just taking on some other elective classes for psychology.
And this is your junior year, right? Second semester, junior year.
Yeah, I'll be a senior next year.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me something. Have you gotten into the part of the psychology courses yet where you're doing sort of role playing and stuff like that with people?
No. I talked to some of my students who take experimental psych because it's the last class for the advanced elective. But I think there's a lab or a certain type of project, but that really falls under the line of graduate school.
Graduate
where you
students,
do your disorientation and you do hands-on work with whatever concentration of psychology you're really interested in.
Right. And after this semester, you're going to have to start taking a serious look at what you're going to do graduate school-wise, don't you?
Yeah, I've been actually looking into some schools, deciding if I want to stay in Jersey or not. I want to go out of state. If I'm looking at it's a lot. Like looking for a graduate program, you have to know what you want when looking into a graduate program. So I've just been looking into schools, seeing what works for me and stuff like that.
And you have to be very specific. Okay, so we'll talk more about your courses and your book needs.
Yeah.
Probably like next week or something like that. But something I got to tell you, something that's already started to play on my brain is what's going to be the plan for next summer?
So I do have a couple of advisors on campus who know about my situation, who are trying to help and see what my options are.
Okay.
I know the campus does provide housing for students who work on campus. So I've looked into some jobs that allow you to stay on campus for free. But of course, you have to go through the application process, so it's not 100% guaranteed. So I'm waiting for some of those applications to get back for me. If not, then I have to expand my options to other things. I know we talked about, living situations during the summer as well up in Montclair, which I'm of course open to.
Yeah.
Because it's close to connections with jobs who already I can still work during the summer if I'm close to Montclair.
Yeah.
Because I know where I work now on campus will still allow me to work in the summer.
It's sort of three things or four things actually that kind of need to come together. There's the place where you live, right?
Yeah.
There's the food that you eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the job and the transportation to and from the job.
Right.
Right. Those are critical components. And then there's this other little thing, which is like where you stow your stuff.
Yeah,
right?
that's another thing that I've been thinking about. That's why I'm really, trying to make connections on campus, because I know it'll be easier since I do have one more year left of college. And then it'll, give me time to prepare for, living situations and saving up money. I've been trying to save up a lot, started saving, things of that sort.
I'm glad to hear that. It's very important to have like a little bit of a cushion,
Yeah.
so when you're moving forward. And I guess, well, it seems to me that your experience last summer taught you a lesson that you learned that not everybody does learn who's in your situation, which is the idea of friends saying, "Oh, don't worry, you can come and stay with me," is really a last resort, an absolute positive.
Yeah, it's third. Yeah, it's not. It hasn't tarnished the friendship. She's always still there for me, and her family is. They consider me family. It's just very. You have to consider people's customs and the way they live, and there's nothing wrong with that because that's their household. And you start to feel kind of like a burden, and you're in the way. And the situation it's difficult because it's still a situation where you're not. That's still not a home,
right?
Kind of, sort of. So it's very difficult to have that friendship and then cross those boundaries. It's hard to deal with that situation. That's why it is a last resort kind of thing.
Absolutely. It's hard to make someone else's space your own, right? When if the campus gives you housing or something like that, at least you can hang your pictures on the wall
Yeah.
And leave your books out occasionally or something, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
when it's someone else's space. Couches are good for a couple, 3 days. You know,
Yeah,
they're not good for like 3 months. It's just not that workable a plan. Have you ever looked into, like, there's places in Newark like Covenant House and programs like that. Have you ever looked into those for temporary housing?
I haven't. I tried. I reached out to certain programs. I look out for. Of course. Foster kids out of the system.
Hmm.
I looked into the Chaffee Fund program, but I'm starting to. I did have some connections. I think welfare does help out students who are in college and don't have living situations. I'm thinking about looking into that. I'm just trying to, just figure out, where to start. But school's definitely, the most easiest thing. So
Yeah.
if anything, I'll start there and then, work my way down to see what other options there are.
Absolutely. That makes absolutely perfect sense. And whenever I talk to people about you, I always tell them that whatever we put into you, you give us 10 times that back. And
Yeah.
and you certainly have demonstrated that tonight in our discussion about next summer, because most people your age wouldn't be thinking about next summer right now. And
Yeah, it's you try not to let it stress you out with everything, because then you have school and work and then social life, and you try to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? It questions a lot, the semester was very emotional, but also uplifting to find out how much strength I have to get through it. I did great. I had a great semester. I had wonderful grades, and I was just surprised that I could keep moving forward. So I think that's what's helping me get through the situation, is realizing that I do have the strength, and I'll always figure out what to do next. I think
unbelievable.
that's the mindset you gotta have.
You are fantastic. Shasha, we're going to let you go, okay? Hope you feel better.
All right.
We'll talk again next week. And let's take a short break right now and give our listeners out there a chance to share this broadcast with their friends on Facebook if you haven't already. We'll be back in 40 seconds with updates on some of the youth you've heard interviewed in the program last year. And coming up later, don't miss this, a brand new song from Tabitha Elizabeth James, okay? Back in 40 seconds. And we are back. So I was telling you before Shasha called, I was telling you about Brian. And I was telling you about Brian. Brian, transgender male from Florida. When we found out about him, he was homeless in Albany, New York. Now, he was only homeless for a day. All right, so let's not make it more dramatic than it actually is. But still, homeless for a day sucks. And we got him into Covenant House in Newark. And that's why I actually mentioned that to Shasha a few minutes ago. I was curious if she had any information there. And I'm pleased to say that after a very rocky start, Brian is beginning to come around and work toward improving his lot in life and moving towards independence. Now, Brian is 20 years old right now. He's going to be 21 in April. So it's like, time for him to take control of his own life. But, when you're growing up and evolving into a transgender young person, there are things going on in your head that those of us who don't face those issues really can't possibly imagine. We really can't. So think about this with me for a second, okay? The worst place to live is actually being homeless and on the street, sleeping on a piece of cardboard under an overpass. That's the worst place that you can live. People do live there, but it's the worst place. The second worst place to live is in one of those overnight shelters. The shelters are dangerous. Your stuff gets stolen. You're constantly at risk of physical injury. You sleep with one eye open. And also, they kick you out every day. Shelters are not like dwellings. There's nothing stable about a shelter. Every day you get kicked out, and then every afternoon or evening, they let you back in, hopefully, as long as there's a bed for you. So don't think if someone says that they're living in a shelter that it's some form of stable housing, because it's not. It's a bed for an overnight so you don't suffer overexposure from the elements. Maybe a meal. There might be a meal involved of some kind, and that's all. That's all it is. Okay. Now, our goal at Age Out Angels is to enable people to avoid those first two options. We don't want people sleeping on cardboard under an overpass, and we don't want people in those evening shelters when they have no housing to go with the third option, which is to find a bed in a more stable program, and that's where a place like Covenant House comes into play. Covenant House has beds available in Newark and Atlantic City, New Jersey. There's also a place in Middlesex County, New Jersey called Roots and Wings, also very good. They make beds available, they make food available, and they have programs to help people get back on their feet. They feed you, and it's a very clear step up from the shelter. Okay, a very clear step up, a giant leap up from the streets. But you have to understand that it's not perfect. Now, many of the youth who are staying in these programs have been victims of multiple traumatic experience. Many of them also have undiagnosed mental disorders and can be prone to violent outbursts. And when that happens, they're usually evicted from the program. But some unsuspecting youth takes a beat down along the way. So you have to understand that even those places, for all of their good intentions, it can be very unpleasant at times to be in one of those types of homes. So all of that, everything that I just told you, is set up for you to understand Brian's timeline. On November 6th, he was in Albany, and his text to me at midnight read, "I'm sleeping outside in the rain. I don't know where a shelter is." And that's all I heard from him that night. By November 7th, we had him at Covenant House. So 24 hours later, he was at Covenant House with a roof over his head and food to eat. In the first set of tweets from Covenant House, he said he was afraid of being jumped or beat up, but that was really more of an initial paranoia than any actual immediate threat. No one was threatening him. This was just what was going through in his mind. How is he going to be treated as a transgender male? Staying on the girl's side of Covenant House, not on the male side, because he felt he would get killed if he stayed on the male side, okay? And we started talking about work, and he wrote, "My hair is an unnatural color. It's like orange, and I'm worried about getting a job with it." He also wrote, "The food here is radioactive." Then a few days went by, and there were little things started to happen, like my phone charger broke, which is a $5 fix, but where's he going to get the $5? He had pawned some of his personal items and was looking also for money to get his personal items back. And it went along like that, with little things that he needed. It basically cost you $200 to get a kid out of trouble in that situation. $200 gets him his items back. It gets from the pawn shop. It gets him a new phone charger, give him a ride to Walmart. $200, it's like nothing. $200, is like dinner for four in a reasonably fancy restaurant is $200. And this gets a kid totally out of trouble. It's just mind-boggling how little it costs to do. Okay. On November 19th, so remember he was in Covenant House on November 7th. November 19th at 9:10 a.m., when the text to me read, "I got robbed by a trans girl who moved out, and I'm walking the streets looking for her." So what happens is right around November 19th, the tenor of his texts begins to change, and it starts to take on a real sort of negative thing. And we went back and forth about, me telling him, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to start a fight? Are you going to, jail is worse than Covenant House, trust me. So, we went through all of that stuff. And then on November 22nd, he wrote, "My parents closed my bank account. They fucked me over and I'm beyond pissed. Later that same day, he wrote, I cursed out the staff and told them I'm killing myself. That's November 22nd. That's the first reference to suicide that he said. Then twice within 1 minute, he wrote, I'm not doing well. And again, I'm not doing well. And then the next minute he wrote, I hate this place. I have no hope. My friend is picking me up. I'm bipolar and have depression and severe anxiety. Also, I'm a sociopath by diagnosis with antisocial personality disorder. It's getting darker and darker. If I'm around people for too long, I snap and get angry. My depression needs me to sleep and be in bed, but they make us get up and out of bed every morning at 7 a.m. And you know, that's true. Like, these places have rules. They have curfew. They have time you have to be in your room. They have lights out. They have time you have to get up in the morning. These are not places where you can go and sort of lounge in bed all day and say, I'm glad I got a place to stay and a roof over my head. Now I can chill and maybe look for some weed. It doesn't work that way. So it continues then on November 24th. We're getting like right around Thanksgiving, right? A kid threatened to beat me up outside, so I reported him and reported that he robbed me. So I'm going to go through hell soon and try not to get killed. They wanted to move me to a new room for safety, but I said no, because I'm not leaving where I live because of some homeless rat kid. If I get killed, I get killed. It's fine by me. And it's getting dark, and I'm worried about him, but I'm not worried about him. And the reason I'm not is because, on the one hand, he talks about why it's okay to die. And on the other hand, he talks about how he's trying to survive. You know, he doesn't always use those words. He doesn't always say, I'm trying to survive, but he's trying to survive. And so the next day, November 25th, he called his parents with the immature idea that they would pay for him to go back to Florida and maybe go back to school. And in his own words, I'll do anything to get out of this shithole. So Covenant House has gone from a place that saved him from being outdoors on a rainy night in Albany to a shithole. Okay, that's November 25th. November 27th, he wrote, I don't know if I want to live here. I don't want to be alive. On November 28th, he was thinking about moving to Orlando. So see, there's this constant like yin-yang thing going on here, where 1 second he wants to die, the next second he's making the next plan. And the next plan is never a good one. It's never a plan that has, like, you know, a righteous outcome. It's just always a plan where he runs away from the place that he's at, goes to a new place, and you know, and ends up in worse trouble than he was in before. So that's November 28th. He's thinking about moving to Orlando. On November 30th, he wrote, I'm still in Newark at Covenant House. They're paying me $8 an hour to do jobs around the house. And I made an employment application to UPS. So all of a sudden on November 30th, there's this whole positive message. He's working, he's making $8 an hour. The reason he filled out the employment application to UPS is they pay like closer to $15 an hour. So, you know, not only is he thinking about employment, but he's thinking about how you move up in employment, how you sock some money away and move on. So that's November 30th. And then on December 7th, right back down in the dumpers. I can't be here anymore. I don't care about anything right now. That's on December 7th. Now, he did say that he's like, you know, I don't know, bipolar and antisocial and, you know, has all these problems. So in a way, it kind of makes sense that he would keep going, you know, from big highs and low lows, right? Because that was in December 7th, he says, I don't care about anything right now. On December 18th, he wrote, I saved $200 so far and have a job at Office Depot. I believe that was a job interview at Office Depot tomorrow. I want to get out of here as soon as I can. So here now he's talking about getting out of there as soon as he can, but not by way of suicide, by way of working and earning money and saving money. And that was December 18th. On December 23rd, he wrote, I got beat up in my room. This girl stole my really good speaker, broke my roommate's laptop and headphones. She went psycho. I want to go home really bad. I called my parents and we had a good talk. And then in that same text he wrote, I got the job at Office Depot. January 4th, I think I'm getting kicked out of Covenant House for not being able to get out of bed. They make me take double my regular dose of sleeping meds, and I can't get out of bed at 7 a.m. That was January 4th. January 5th, we're plunging deeper into darkness. I can't live like this anymore. I hate living at Covenant House, and I don't want to go home because it would be hell. Plus, they wouldn't let me back home. I don't have a car. I'm walking in the snow. I don't know what the hell I was thinking coming up here. I'm an idiot. Later, in that same conversation, because we talked in text for a while, he wrote, I've had a job at Office Depot for over a week and worked 6 days. I worked 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. yesterday, and all other days I've worked 8+ hours. And then on January 7th, that was January 5th, on January 7th, the whole tenor goes up sky high again, and he says, I'm trying to get extended curfew at the Cove. It's no longer Covenant House, it's the Cove, or the shithole. It's the Cove. So I can go to New York City and start figuring out stand-up comedy routines with this comedian I met at work. I've always wanted to do stand-up, and he said he could mentor me. I also talked to my parents, and it went really well as in great. And a trans journalist found me on Facebook and wants to write a piece on me for publication. So we had a long text conversation that day, and he confirmed that he has health insurance and he has an appointment in New York City on February 9th to discuss the hormone therapy that he's really wanted for a long time. So now, you know, as of just a few days ago, everything is up, 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 everything's sky high. And that made me really happy. And so I didn't communicate with him for a few days because I just wanted to leave that thought. I hope he's okay, and I'll probably talk to him tomorrow. It's been quite a roller coaster with Brian, and I suspect there will be several more ups and downs before he hopefully stabilizes. But I thought all of you might gain a little perspective on what life is actually like for these youth who exist in unstable housing situations. It's no picnic for them. They face their internal demons, and it's no picnic for the staff either, who are frequently the recipients of the outbursts and fits of depression that these kids have. And it's not something that can be immediately remedied with love and a hug. Sorry to all of you who think that it can, but it just doesn't work that way. You take a kid who's really throwing a fit and just wrap him up in a nice hug, and it's a great way to get your nose broken. It takes time, patience, and a willingness to be a supportive partner in a healing process to make these youth understand that they are worthy human beings who have a place in this world that is equally as important as any of the rest of us. John, let's take a short break. Give everyone a chance to share this broadcast with their friends on Facebook. If you haven't already, we'll be back in 40 seconds with more updates on the youth you heard interviewed in this program last year and information about where they're headed this year. And we are back, and let's see who's out there listening tonight. Tabitha Elizabeth James is out there listening. Tabitha, I'm going to try to play your song in a few minutes. We're actually having some technical difficulties here, so don't hate me if it doesn't end up getting on the air tonight. But we're going to give it a try because I love your new song. Jean's out there, Robin's out there, Frank, Roy, Scotty, oh, I haven't heard from you in a long time. It's so good to to have you out listening to the show. And Gavin's out there listening to the show as well. Glad to have you all on board. I need to remind everyone about the Princeton Elks Charitable Trust. The Princeton Elks Charitable Trust provides funds for worthy individuals, organizations, and veterans. In fact, we might be tapping the trust for Shasha's textbooks for her fall semester. And so if you know, or if you are a worthy organization or veterans group or school, who could use a little money, I'm sure all teachers this time of the year are sort of facing that situation where they're out of money for their school supplies, and they won't be able to deduct them anymore. I'm so sad to say. That's pretty horrible. So contact the Princeton Elks Charitable Trust or any Elks Club in your area and find out if they make funds available. In Princeton, the person you want to contact is Stuart Malakov. His phone number is 609-933-7085. To find out if you qualify, and if you didn't have a chance to write that number down, I'll repeat it in a second, but you can also hit me up on Facebook and I'd be happy to send that number to you. Again, that's Stuart Malakov at the Princeton Elks Charitable Trust, 609-933-7085 is his number. So, Tabitha Elizabeth James. I am so happy to report that Tabitha is doing well. She's living with her son, who I believe turned 1 year old in the last couple of days, and working and looking for a better place to live. And we're going to help her do that really soon. And she was a guest on our show for a full hour a couple of months back. And just to sort of bring you up to speed without beating it to death, because her story could be tragic. It isn't because of the person that she is. But she led a very challenging life, and this young lady is only 21 years old. She's also a recording artist and just produced a new song, and I'm going to try to play some of it for you and get through some of these technical problems that we're having tonight. But before I play it, I just want to talk about it for a second, because you need to understand what's going on here. Tabitha really bears it all in this song. She wrote in, what's the website? It's suddenly escaping me. Sound something.
SoundCloud?
SoundCloud. Thank you, John. She wrote in SoundCloud. She wrote, "This is maybe not my best work, but I think you get the point." But Tabitha, I promise you, when I heard it, I thought it might very well be your best work. And I'll tell you why. And as you listen to this song, you'll realize that she's talking openly about some real scars. I mean, she's talking in this song about being abused by her father. And not only that, the zero support she got when she dared to do what we tell young girls to do, which is open your mouth and say something, right? When she opened her mouth and said something, her mother, told her she was just being stupid. And of course, she found out years later that her mother was actually complicit in that incest. She talks about being 16 and getting caught in a situation where her girlfriend, she and her girlfriend ran off to New York. Hi, Regina. Glad you're out there. It turned out her girlfriend was complicit in getting her kidnapped into human trafficking. I mean, this girl has led 10 lives you wouldn't want to leave before she was 20 years old. And she talks about being a survivor. She talks about being a survivor who never gives up. She talks about having 2 children as a result of 2 rapes, and how she just loves them unconditionally. And if you ever saw her with her 1-year-old, she's trying to get her 8-year-old back. But if you ever saw her with your 1-year-old, you would know that that's not just lip service. She absolutely adores this child and loves him in that way that is unconditional, and has vowed not to allow the things that happened to her to happen to her children. And it's that spirit that's truly priceless. Now, Now, here's the point of the song, though. Tabitha, I don't even know if you were aware that you were doing this when you wrote this song, but there's an overlying message here. This is not just what you hear on the surface about all the crap she went through. The overlying message, the song is called "You Don't Know Me," and that message is that we, you and I, interact with people every day, all day, every day. People we work with, people we do business with, or just people we share space with on the same street. We're interacting with people. We meet people in social groups. We meet people in religious organizations. We meet the parents of our children's friends. And sometimes we even meet their extended families. And all those interactions, every one of those interactions, you never really know what's deep down in almost all of these folks. You never know who that person is, that coworker next to you, who has endured horrific circumstances in order to be standing behind you in the line at Wawa for coffee. You just don't know. And so what Tabitha is saying in this song is this is the stuff that I've been through, and you don't know me. So I'm going to play this for you right now. This is Tabitha Elizabeth James. You Don't Know Me.
Trying to get to it. No, it's just that it's not there. It's not me. It's not here. Yeah.
Taba Elizabeth James, You Don't Know Me. Look her up on SoundCloud, and you'll see all of, or hear all of her recordings. She's so intense, and just like Shasha, you know, Tabitha is the kind of person that whatever you put into her, she gives you 10 times back. And she's a survivor, and ultimately she's going to win. And hopefully that will be with the help of Age Out Angels. We're kind of proud of that. So I want to wrap it up tonight with a quick update about a 16-year-old named Latoya, who went to get her birth certificate so that she could get a driving permit, and found out that her birth mother had changed her name. Actually, her birth mother changed her name when she was 9 months old. She never lived with her birth mother. And of course, the reason that birth mothers will do that is to commit fraud. The family will change the child's name, then steal their identity, take out a zillion credit cards, default, and leave the child holding the bag. The child rarely finds out about that until they're older, actually. They go to get their first apartment or something, and you know the landlord runs a credit check, and they find out that their credit score is 0. And so, like, we're still sort of in the middle of waiting to find out what's happening there. When we looked over the legal documents, it was really quite clear that the birth mother retained all the rights to changing the child's name. And it's expressly written that the legal guardian has no rights when it comes to changing the child's name. So essentially, the child has been living under a false name for all of her life, and really has no standing. So there are a couple of things that are interesting about this. First, we talked to the guardian, who informed us that the birth mother has a drug habit. That's why she gave up her children in the first place. And she actually has 5 or 6 other children. And she may have the electric bill under one name and the water bill under another name and so on, jockeying them around so she can spend the maximum on drugs. Then, if you recall, the youth's name was changed to the birth father's last name. So our thought was, rather than contest the name change, why not just go after the birth father for back child support? Let's hit him in his wallet where it hurts the most, right? And understand that that's how we think. That's how we think, and that's the flaw, ladies and gentlemen, because we are middle-aged, middle-class people and incredibly naive when it comes to how normal is defined among households in impoverished lives. Because when we suggested going after the birth father for the money, Latoya's guardian just laughed out loud and said, he's probably in jail or dead. End of story. And if you go after the mother for the money, the judge will just throw out the case because the mother's on welfare and can't pay. So all of these avenues that you think are available to you, and child support and stuff like that, when you get into the lower class of socioeconomic groups, those things are really not available. And, you know, so there we are sort of, you know, right back to square one. Now, we're trying to determine if Latoya's credit has been trashed. And if that's true, and it's really happened that the birth mother took out all these credit cards in her name, then we can possibly petition the court for a name change based on fraud. And fraud may get taken seriously by the courts. Otherwise, the birth mother can do whatever she wants, and we have absolutely no standing to effect a change. So I'll keep you posted on that in the weeks to come. Hey, listen, before we sign off, I want to thank the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. Special thank you to the ETS Cares Fund for their very generous donation. ETS, for those of you who live outside this area, stands for Educational Testing Service. Yes, they are the folks who write those standardized tests we've all taken at one time or another, and they are a wonderful community-minded company that supports all the organizations in Mercer County that do good. We are very grateful for their generosity, and we are made better for our relationship with them. And remember, not just during the holidays, but all year long, every time you make a purchase from Amazon, Amazon.com, You could be making a donation to Age Out Angels without spending a penny more. You heard me correctly. It doesn't cost money to make a donation to Age Out Angels. When you go to Amazon, there's a pop-up that offers you a chance to go to Amazon Smile. Well, if you make your purchase through Amazon Smile, you can designate Age Out Angels as your donation organization. So without it costing you more, a small portion of your purchase will go to Age Out Angels, and then we use it in turn to help children who need it the most. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, I can actually send you a direct link that will take you, like directly to the Amazon Smile designation for Age Out Angels, and save you a few clicks and trying to figure us out, because there's like thousands of organizations that belong to Amazon Smile. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the first hour of the Age Out Angels radio program in our new time slot from 8 to 9. We're thrilled to have you listening. Thank you all so much, those of you who wrote in, those of you who shared the broadcast with your friends. Another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. And hopefully all of us pulling together can spread the word. Again, we offer our most humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, Doc G, and the people who called in tonight. Shasha. Next week, very interesting show lined up for next week. My guest in studio will be Carol Feldman. Carol is an interesting woman who runs a fascinating program that's based on the principle of paying it forward. And I'll also have some interesting call-in guests next week that you won't want to miss. So until next Thursday at 8 p.m., let's make this week the best week ever. Good night.